Hi, my name is Taylor Dashiell, and I'll be talking to you today about riparian area protection. The method I chose to discuss was wildlife exclusion fencing, which is just traditional woven wire mesh attached to welded steel posts. They constructed it about 76 inches tall, which is just a little over 6 feet. But however, they left a 16-inch gap at the bottom so that normal, smaller rodents and wildlife can continue normal life and go underneath the fence. This would include rabbits, beavers, coyotes, fox, badgers, etc. However, they did leave gates for humans so they could go through without disrupting the fence or the wildlife. An example of this that they recently did was in the Rocky Mountain National Park in the Comanche Valley and Horseshoe Park. These were two of the major affected areas within the park that elk and moose were destroying. So they fenced in about 200 acres total in little 5 to 10 or 5 to 30 acre sessions. So why would we want to care about these valleys and care about this fencing? They We need to maintain willow and aspen tree populations. The elk and the moose are heavily jeopardizing these tree populations due to heavy browsing and breaking the branches, which can lead to whole tree death. So obviously beavers need trees to build dams. Without the trees and dams, the riparian ecosystems can revert to an alternative, stable upland state as they have documented in Yellowstone, which cannot support willow establishment or high water tables. So dams are necessary for flooding and necessary for the ecosystem. The dams collect fine textured sediment that is critical for the establishment of large willow stands, whereas of course coarse grained sediment can trap willow seeds and is prone to drought, which reduces willow seedling survival. So here's a good before and after picture of the Comanche Valley. So in 1995, this was obviously a much healthier ecosystem. And by 2005, there's a very significant reduction in willow leaf area, live stems, and structure occurring. It indicates that the willow communities are rapidly declining in condition in an area. Although there is some argument this looks like a little time difference in the year, it's still very obvious that there is some deconstruction going on. Here's a good visual of the Comanche Valley and why beavers are so necessary to this area. So in 2002, here is the river. The outline is the dotted outline is the riparian ecosystem. And then this little arrow is pointing to a dark black dot that is a beaver dam. The lighter gray area is flooding that was caused by the beaver dam. Oh. So in 2003, they did not allow a beaver dam to form in this section of the river, and so this is just minor flooding that occurred in there compared to again in 2004 where they had a beaver dam and it allowed much heavier flooding to happen in the river valley. So dams influence groundwater levels, producing large areas with high water tables during the summer. The hydraulic influence of beaver dams is much greater than that produced by large floods in the Comanche Valley, which is very evident in these visuals of the dammed river valley versus the undammed river valley during a summer flood. So with that, the conservationists propose to build fence where it's most heavily influenced by the beaver dams. So that's what these little blue outlined areas are, where it's most likely to have a higher beaver population. And then here's an example of Horseshoe Park. This is just a slower or bigger blow up of this area. The blue line is again the fence. They place these little yellow dots as to show you where they're going to put like a track plot to track what kind of livestock or what kind of wildlife is going in that area. And then they also place cameras along this fence line to show you what kind of wildlife was going in and out and if this was successful. So what is a pro of doing the wildlife fencing? There's immediate direct control of wildlife consumption. It allows a full area to rest where there's no grazing and no destruction by the moose and elk. There's also not a need to cull the wildlife because it's not being overgrazed at this moment. And this fence is also temporary. It can be taken down in a couple of years. So here are some trail cam footages that were seen in the previous slide, where they set up those red dots. There's obviously some elk using it, mountain lion, there's a badger here, moose, deer, humans, fox, and coyotes are seen going underneath it. So it's obviously very productive, and it's a very heavily populated area, but it's shown the fence being effective as well. There are some cons to it. It's obviously very expensive to build and maintain a fence. It was about 875,000 to just do these two areas, but they do plan on doing more of it. There is a concentration of movement around the fence, which could lead to further erosion or further need to control the erosion as far as like creek crossings, etc. Plus, it's just a poor aesthetic. People don't go into the wild and go into national parks to see fence. However, the results were very successful. They do eventually hope to take down the fences. As you can see in this picture, which is obviously kind of poor quality, there is a 4-year difference between this, and there's quite a bit more regrowth between the before and after picture. But the long-term success is yet to be determined with how long it's going to take. So in conclusion, this was obviously very successful. Throughout this 4-year study, there was only one elk seen inside, and they think that was just due to snowdrift causing where it lowered the level of the fence where he was able to jump over it quite a bit easier. And it was also great for the smaller mammals to pass under like normal. However, long term is still yet to be determined how long these fences will have to stay up for it to be fully productive. And my references.